Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
So I heard this incredible podcast episode by, this is somebody who is a spiritual, we're going to say leader, has written a bunch of books. I'm going to find out the name, and the name is like, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's in Sanskrit, and he's changed his name. But anyways, to the Sanskrit name. But he said something which was really profound. And he talked about, when you are letting things go, and that it simply can be that decision. But he kind of had a process that he went through with that, which we won't get into here on this podcast episode. But there was something that he said at the end which really struck me. And it was this. It's like when you have that, feelings of guilt or shame or blame or anger, whatever it is, and you're choosing to let those things go, or you're choosing to forgive that person in order to let things go, or you're choosing to forgive yourself in order to let things go, that you need to also send a blessing, or to let that negative energy go, send it away with love. And the reason why was when he said this, is like, if you don't, that negative energy is going to keep coming back, and that it is looking for resolution. And I was like, whoa, that's big. Think, right? Think of times in your life you're like, you know what? I'm just going to drop that kind of thing. But there was still like there was still like an emotional charge in there. Probably something where you're pissed, or you think of it and it brings you a lot of sadness. Maybe you blame yourself for something. Maybe you blame the other person. You put that little victim robe on for a moment. And even though you're like, oh, I've let it go. It's like the majority of you have, but there's still that piece that's, it's not quite there. Because you have not let that energy go, like it still has something. And it can be, by the way, sister, a process where you were just like, you know what, it's not where I'm going to let it go. Or it could be something, maybe it was years of kind of really working through stuff and working with others and doing a lot of inner work to say, you know what, that used to be the way, like I've now let that go. And I'll give you an example with me. So this isn't necessarily a negative thing. It's a sad thing. But I'm a mother through adoption. And I was never able to conceive. And when we adopted our first son, Tyson, and it was 7.5 years of trying to get pregnant. But even when we were placed with Tyson, and actually when we were on the wait list, I still was continuing with fertility procedures to try to get pregnant, because there's always these like crazy stories that they're real. They happen at times. I don't think it's as common as people think, or the stories go. It's not an urban myth. It does happen, but it's like people are struggling to get pregnant. They get on the adoption wait list, and suddenly they get pregnant. I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be me. See, it was hard for me to let go of I'm not going to. Once I then became a mom through adoption, it was like, I'm a mom now, right? So a lot of that kind of wound of infertility of like, I'm never going to get a chance to be a mom. And a lot of the stories I would tell myself, which are things like, maybe I'm just not meant to be a mom. Maybe I'm going to be a shitty mom, and so I'm just avoiding all this stuff. Like, I'm just supposed to suffer and be in pain, like all the stuff that I went through. So when Tyson Jack was born, and I stood outside it's so funny, I can tell this story and get welled up in tears in a moment, and he's almost 8, of his birth mom, amazing Chanel, who was just 16 at the time when she birthed Tyson, and wanted us there at the hospital when he was born, and heard Tyson cry for the first time, and I saw the nurse kind of take him over and clean him up, and I just dropped to my knees in gratitude. And it was in that moment, sister, there was like such a release of a lot of that. It was gratitude, it was joy, it was like a letting go of so much of that pain. And it's hard to describe infertility unless you actually have lived it. And I'm somewhere like, yeah, we struggled for years and then we got pregnant. I'm like, Okay, but then you still got what you wanted, so to speak, at the end, right? And listen, I don't for a moment, I see now, like, I know with every piece of me that my husband and I were designed to be Tyson and Kai's mommy and daddy. That's why this happened the way that, like, I see that now. But yet, after Tyson was born, and I still thought, like, maybe I could still get pregnant. And so we could have this adoptive child, and I could actually have, like, I literally remember and this was even after Kai was born. Like, I remember having some instances. Now, right now, I'm 49. I'm, like, full on going through menopause. Like, full on. Like, I really have a period. I think the last time was maybe 3-4 months ago. Very short. Before that was probably 5 months before that. I started getting hot flashes probably about my mid-40s. And, still regular. But anyway, so at the time before I actually was going through, we'll call it then, not diagnosed, we'll call it perimenopause, that, I remember actually being in line at a drugstore with a pregnancy test because my period was late and I was like pretty much on time. And at this point it was maybe like a week late. I'm like, oh my God, maybe I'm pregnant. Here I am, 44-year-old woman standing in line at Shoppers Drug Mart. And actually, I think it was up until I was 46. Because I was still getting regular periods at that time. And I was like, I could still be pregnant. I could still... And so, like, the dream, the want, the wish, the hope of being pregnant, so much of that, and not just being pregnant, but being able to birth a child. It's hard to really explain it if you haven't experienced it, but for those of you that have birthed your children, like, that's such a gift. And I know some of you will, say, well, I've got all these stretch marks and scars and it was painful and hard and breastfeeding's changed my boobs and all. Like, I understand and I can appreciate all of that. And I think if I was on your shoes, I'd be saying some of the same things, right? But, like, to know that I will never have a chance to experience what it's like to grow life inside of me. To be pregnant and go through all those things, to be able to actually birth a child, to breastfeed and nurse my children, like, it took me a long ass time to heal and move through that. And, like, it's good now, but it took a long time. So that when I would, hear the next friend, or when I was in practice, the next patient that got pregnant or be nursing their child or talk about the experience of birth, or, it's just, they at times for me would still be small wounds that would remind me that I never got to have that experience. And then I could go just a little bit into the story of, like, I got robbed, like, why couldn't I have done this? Our kids don't look like all stuff, which is like, who fucking cares? Like, it doesn't matter, right? But for the longest time, sister, I would still have that, we're going to call that negative energy that was not resolved. And so what would happen is when I had experiences, like I said, like seeing someone else who's pregnant, or seeing the new baby, or women breastfeeding, and kind of gone, that'll never be me. It would still be there. And what this spiritual leader went on to say in the podcast, and I'm going to find out what that is. So Evan, who produces the podcast, who's amazing, and I love and appreciate you, brother. If I don't send this to you in the show notes, then just send me an email and I'll make sure to grab you the link, because it's a great, great podcast interview with Oprah and Oprah SuperSoul Sunday. And this gentleman, spiritual leader. And what he says is that if it's not resolved, it'll keep surfacing. In other words, the way that I really interpret, the way that I see that, is it's not fully healed, right? And so me, with my experience of going through, of being infertile and not being able to be pregnant or birth or nurse children, was still that, like, little wound, and it kept coming back and it kept coming back and it kept coming back because I had not resolved that negative energy. And so, not that I've done this, because this was before I heard the podcast interview, but I'm gonna maybe have a little ceremony today, a little 30-second ceremony, and just, send blessings and love to the Karen that used to be really sad about that, and the feelings and thoughts that I had about, again, feeling robbed, or like, like a victim, like I can't actually birth a child, I can't be pregnant, I can't, like breastfeed, like that little piece that maybe is still there, which I don't believe is, because it does feel really clean. But again, it wasn't resolved, right? And so those things kept triggering me. And so here's your more tip I'm going to have for you then, sister, is like, what, negative thought, experience, relationship, do you really need to send blessings and or love? Or like whatever works for you, right? You might go, I'm just gonna like, I just see white light on it. Like I'm gonna send it out that way, right? Think of when people sometimes will have like, ceremonies. My husband and I, we were in Maui one time. We've been there several times. This is before we had kids. It was a long, long time ago. And we were heading down to the beach. And it was kind of early in the morning. I think we were out for a run. And we were going to head down to the beach. We're like, let's just see what the water's like today. And so we saw this woman, white woman, and about maybe 6 Samoan Hawaiian dudes, like big dudes. They had the kind of traditional garb on. Like they had like a couple like little bead things like around their biceps, and beads hung around their neck. And they were shirtless, and they're carrying this canoe, and they're with this white woman. And the only reason I'm saying it's just for you to understand. Anyway, so it'll make sense in a second. And then we're like, wow, what is this? But you could feel it. Like there was something that was happening with this. And so we just kind of observed from a distance, because it almost felt like I'm like, ooh, I need to give space. Like I don't want them to know I'm seeing them, but I'm just respectfully like seeing them. Seeing, not like, what are some of the words I'm thinking of? Like spying on them or anything like that. It was just like, wow, something special is happening here. And then they got in the water and they started, and then I saw she was holding something, and it was an urn. And I went, oh, they're having a ceremony. Someone that she loved, that she has their urn, that's their ashes. And, connect the dots. I'm kind of like, oh, they're going to have some kind of special ceremony, and she's going to release the ashes to the ocean. At least that's what I think that happened. And so, I think when people do things like that, it's like I'm going to bless this person to wherever they go now. Maybe they just go back to the ocean. Maybe my belief is our soul still continues on. Maybe they get to enter into a new space, a new world, a new existence. I don't know. But you could tell that there was a beauty to it. There was a sadness to it. There was like a completeness to it, right? Of that woman that's sending blessings and love, and maybe any other kind of sadness. Not to say that suddenly doesn't and mourning ends. It can still go on. And really, infertility it was a mourning for me. It really was. It was a loss. And it was something that I see, at least, when people have those experiences like that, to move through, right? So it doesn't stay with you. So now I can look back and I go, oh, thank you, God, for not making me pregnant. I see now. I understand. I understand that the space needed to be created for me to be able to come and be Tyson and Kai's mommy. And so now when I think about not being pregnant and not birthing a child and not nursing, and I'm just like, it's okay, because I know it needed to happen this way. And I send blessings and love to that story, those thoughts that are still there. And again, I inadvertently did even before I listen to the podcast episode. So what I'd like to do for you for this more Tipton sister is, what is it for you? What relationship is going to be something when you're hearing these stories that really stands out for you? It's a relationship. It's an experience. It is, and a relationship could be like a breakup or a divorce, or something that didn't happen with a friend. It could be a business relationship that went really sour. It could be someone that you've lost. It could be someone that's harmed you in the past. It could be an experience that you had. It could be decisions that you made. But whatever that thing is, that thought, that energy that you still hold on to, I'm going to encourage you to send blessings and love and start to do whatever you need to do to let that go and move forward. It doesn't matter who's right. It doesn't matter who's wrong. It's irrelevant. The thing is that thing right now, that energy is weighting you down in your life, sister, holding you back. The only person that will set you free from this is you. And you might not be ready to let that go today or tomorrow or a year from now. But you do whatever is necessary for you to begin that process of letting it go. And then you make sure that you send blessings and love, good energy, positive vibes, namaste, whatever works for you, whatever term, like whatever. Send that to the negative energy so it doesn't keep coming back and trying to resolve something that's just not done yet. So, sister, finishing up, there's just one thing I'm going to have you do, which is subscribe to the Woman Wanting More newsletter. There's a lot of you that do not. I mail out anywhere from 5 to 7 times per week, so close to daily, of the podcast episode show notes. I also send out some blog posts that I've written, and to send you some invitation to some things that will be coming up, I believe, with the business in the future. Right now, I'm pausing right now in the summer as I'm producing these podcasts and really figuring things out as I'm going through my own spiritual journey and just, listening into what this all means and where I need to go from here. But the newsletter is the one way that I can really connect with you. Because not all of you are on Facebook or seeing the posts or on Instagram, which I hang out a lot, both in those two places. But subscribe to the newsletter. I'm going to also send you some 3 really amazing video trainings as my special gift to you. So to subscribe to the newsletter, sister, head over right now to drkarenosburn.com. So it's drkarenosburn.com/action guide. And I'm going to get you set up in the newsletter today. So I will talk to you in the next episode, sister. A life of more is just one step away from you being in a state of love as much as you can every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosburn.com/newsletter.